Okay, that's good. I don't know why that happened. It drives me insane. All right, well, that's working, and that's working, and oops, I'm gonna pop out the chat. And there we go. That's good, that's fine, and there we go. All right. Hello from Perth, Scotland. Nice. Didn't even know there was a Perth in Scotland. Let's see here. Greetings from South Germany, sunny Sweden. It's sunny-ish today here, not too bad. Sunny Las Vegas. Good morning from Ontario. Don't know whether it's sunny or not, but let's hope so. Pachow from Montreal, Canada. Cursed City was overpriced in my opinion. Nice looking heroes though. Honestly, for $200 American, with the amount of models in it, I don't know that I feel as it was overpriced. Especially when you compare it to the $160 for 12 models of Pariah Nexus. Just, you know, I don't know that it's necessarily, the, you know, one-to-one, but yeah. Hope your weekend is treating you well. Not too bad, not too bad. Let's see here. Colchester, probably pronouncing that incorrectly. Currently in build mode. Assemble what feels like all the Necron warriors. Yeah? Sometimes you're in build mode, sometimes you're in paint mode. Couldn't prime due to 6 inches of snow in Massachusetts. Ugh, that's terrible. It was in the mid-50s here yesterday. I guess that's, I don't know. It's okay for me. I'm sorry. Morning from Sacramento. How you doing? Let's see here. Hola desad España. I think that means that I'm in Spain, and hello, but I'm close, hopefully. I know 2 of those words, so greetings. Let's see here. Morning from Wyoming. Good day from Australia. It's morning in Cursed City. Could be. I don't know, does it ever get to be morning in Cursed City? Gloomy in South Ontario. At least it ain't raining. That's a good point. Hello from Ottawa, Canada. Oh, and a little flag. That's nice. I almost bought Pariah Nexus, says Timothy. You know, I mean, it depends on what you're looking for, I guess. I feel like it was a good deal for the amount you get, 180 from a local game store with the standard 20% discount in the U.S. I mean, the 20% discount is standard at some stores, although I thought that they changed it. I thought Games Workshop said that it had to be dropped down to 15, but I could be wrong on that. I don't remember exactly. But yeah, you know, and some shops do retail, and some shops do discount. Most of the shops that do retail then also have like a buyer's club or a rewards system. Like my local shop that I go to, stuff sold retail, but for every $100 you spend, you get $15 off, or like a $15 coupon off of your next purchase. So you're making money is what you're doing. Let's see here. Finally got my airbrush and the parts I need, but I'm afraid to start. Don't be afraid, Grimlock Steve. It's you know, here's the thing. Don't be afraid. Practice on some plastic spoons or some models you don't care about or anything. An important thing to do, in my opinion, is to use your phone, your cell phone or whatever, and either shoot some video or take some pictures as you initially take the airbrush apart, just so that if you get stuck trying to put it back together and you're like, I don't remember where this part goes, you can refer to the pictures or the video and figure it out from there. Because, I mean, you may not be an instructions reader. I'm sometimes a little bit of that, but, you know, you got that going on. But it's not a bad idea. Good morning from Eau Claire. Good morning from Green Bay. We got a couple of Wisconsin folks. Deep South Texas. That's not Wisconsin. Let's see here. Something tells me 6 inches of snow in Adamland is standard morning. Not this time of year, but I was just telling my wife yesterday that I'm glad we've had a pretty mild April. Because we've had Aprils in the past where I have felt personally persecuted by, you know, this time of the month and just been like, because it's just, like every day it's just nonstop sleet or something like that, and it sucks. But this so far, knock on wood, this April has been pretty mild, which has been nice. The GW 15% mandate only applies to online sales. Oh, that's right. Okay, yep. Some stores get around that by letting you phone in an order. Yep, I thought, okay. I knew that there was a 15% mandate, but yeah, that's right. It's online. So stores can go lower if they want to, sure. My FLGS doesn't do a discount, but I still support them. They helped me get a copy of Cursed City and Dominus and the Necron Battle Force for the last year. 100% loyal to them now. See, that's the thing. The thing that was really interesting, this happened with Indominus, and this happened with Cursed City as well, is that people were like, oh, it's sold out online, it's totally unavailable, I'll never get one. And then store owners are like, I got copies, you know what I mean? Like, it's here. Like, the 4 local stores directly in my area, at least, I think, 3 of them still have Indominus in stock. And as well, to be perfectly honest, I haven't looked at all. I know at least 2 of them still have Cursed City in stock. So, and they're not Games Workshop stores. Like, there is a Games Workshop store that's relatively close to me now. It's about a 45-minute drive away. That's the closest one that we've ever had since I've been playing in miniatures. It's one of the. I think it's the newest shop that cropped up in Wisconsin. It's up near Green Bay. But anyway, my point is that if you are sad because you couldn't get it, definitely make some calls to your local game shops in your area. Maybe it's a 45-minute drive. If you're like, well, I'm really sad that I don't have it, and you want to get it, call some shops and see if they've got it. And if they don't, well, I don't know. That's a good question. But if you're also like, maybe I don't want to make a 45-minute drive, I don't find it worthwhile, well, then there's your answer there. You know what I mean? But yeah. Let's see. Greetings from Germany. How you doing? Working on a set of game boards betwixt bouts of fence building. That sounds sort of fun. Morning from Uperland, the UP, Upper Peninsula. Adam making the conspiracy meme pose. The snow is out to get me. When it's April and it's still snowing a lot, then it feels like that sometimes. My store in Poland sold me a copy for $116 because another person canceled order. Damaged box corner. Oh, well, there you go. That's pretty cool. Good morning from sunny West Virginia. I moved to Las Vegas from Pennsylvania last year. This past winter has made me glad of that decision. Yeah, I missed Vegas a little bit this year. The last several years I've been going to Vegas in January for the Las Vegas Open. So yeah, I kind of missed going this year because it is sort of nice in January to go someplace where it's not, really crazy snowy and all that stuff. My local GW still has an Indominus box on the shelves in Cursed City as of Friday. Yeah, there you go. My store luckily has a few copies, so they got one for me. Nice. I got lucky with my local shop. I picked up Cursed City there and Rogue Trader a few weeks back. It was a warehouse find. Nice. First time watching this live from Wakefield, UK. Batch painting 100 elves for Kings of War. That's a lot of elves, man. Good luck with that. I am not I'm all about assembly line painting or batch painting, but I generally cut the line at around 10 at a time. Sometimes I'll go as many as, on Twitch I did 13 Skaven Plague Monks, and that was fine. But yeah, maybe 13 is my limit. I've already been sunburned twice here in Calgary. Wow. I was outside a bit, I had to stop over to my mom's to help her with some stuff, and then I don't have my second shot yet, but she does, and so I was wearing a mask and all that stuff in the house, and she was as well. And then I was like, let's go out on the porch and hang out and talk, and then we were, so then we didn't have to wear masks, and it was fine. But it was nice. It was not windy, but it was not crazy warm, but it was sunny and not windy, which helps. So I started with a cheap garbage airbrush that constantly clogged. Now I can tear it down and put it back together like Forrest Gump and his M116. Practice makes perfect. Yeah, I mean, a little bit of that. It does certainly, it can be daunting when you see all the parts and you're like, man, I don't know if I'll be able to put this back together the same way and whatever, and I understand that, which is why I say, shoot a little video, take pictures or something. But once you get the hang of it, it just makes sense. Just like so many different things. Like, you'd be, reading the rules for a game and you're like, I really don't understand this. This doesn't make any sense. And then, you play through it once, you stumble through it, and then all of a sudden when you look at the instructions again, now everything just sort of clicks and it just makes sense. It's kind of the same with airbrush. It's the same with a lot of things. Hi from Russia. We do not have friendly local game store that would have copies here. Yeah. I can see that being an issue. I know that was just talking to somebody recently about how Brazil barely has it. Like, you can barely get anything wargaming related, not just Games Workshop, but any kind of wargaming stuff, because the distribution in Brazil is just not, or is relatively non-existent up until just recently. So yeah, no, that's. I would assume your limit for elves would be 0. Well, there's that. That's true, VJ Morph. I'm not a big elf. Like, I don't. When I was doing the Warcry Quick and Easy, or Cheap and Easy, sorry, series, and I got to order, there was one unit of elves, and I forget what the heck they were. But I was like, if I had to do elves, I could see doing them. They weren't too bad, and they certainly were not the new Lumineth cow elves, whatever. It was, I forget, shadow somethings. They weren't dark elves either. They were like, I don't know, but they were archers, I think, but they weren't bad. They like the artwork, or the sculpts weren't terrible. They still had the dumb cone heads, but so yeah. I was able to get Cursed City, but I'm having a hell of a time finding the novel. I don't know why they don't put those things on Kindle. You know what I mean? Like, we live in a day and age where digital is just so much easier. You can get it around the world instantly, That's why I love, like, digital, I don't know. I know some people are like, absolutely, I have to have the book. I will not work in a digital format. I will not use a PDF or a whatever. But I mean, then you kind of get what you get, unfortunately. I'm a big fan of buying games these days, especially indie stuff, because it's the way to go for indie stuff. But most indie stuff that I get in a PDF or something, so that I've got 20 of them on my iPad, as opposed to having to carry around 20 books. Makes it helps, I think. And I wish that, Games Workshop's gotten into audiobooks, and they should just, I don't know, they should get into Kindle is what they should do, and you should be able to get that stuff there, and it'd be great. As a Brazilian, I say that is true. Well, see, yeah, that's why I wasn't. It wasn't you that I was talking to there, but it was somebody recently I was talking to. I was talking about how Brazil, and there just wasn't any wargaming for a very long time. Cursed City could be another supervillain move by GW, like they did with Indominus. Here's the deal. I don't believe that they did either of these things so that they could sit back in their castle and cackle and laugh at people being sad. Like, I don't believe this is not a supervillain move, in my opinion. I don't think that this is something that, like, I'm sure that they would have loved to produce as many as was needed, and everybody was happy, and there were puppies and flowers, and they made a big pile of money. You know what I mean? I think it's, frankly, a bit of a perfect storm situation. Number one, pandemic. That's a problem. From what we understand now, it seems as if this game was supposed to come out in November of 2020. And obviously it slipped because of the pandemic. And that's shipping, that's warehousing, that's lockdown in the UK, that's all kinds of different things. So there's that. Number two, Brexit. Also another big giant pain in the butt for the UK if you're a UK business. Talk to any person who's a UK business owner. They will tell you a long, long story. So that's problem number two. There's a rumor kind of going around that I got from a pretty reliable source, I think. But again, take this with a bit of a grain of salt because I don't have any, 100% knowledge in this. But there is talk that during production there was basically a damaged mold, so they weren't able to produce as many as they could, and so that's another reason that the issue happens. There's also talk that a lot of the cardboard and the printed stuff, even though the box says made in the UK, I think there's certain laws about like where it was put together and assembled and where the majority of it was made, and the plastic's made in the UK, but there's still talk going around the industry that in many situations the printed stuff is made in China, and if they don't have any more printed stuff then you can't, it's on the other side of the planet and you can't get it here. So there's that as well that I'm hearing. The other thing too is that I think they maybe learned something from Indominus. And that is when Indominus came out and they thought that they had enough and they sold out. And then they're like, cool, we'll do a made to order. And then that brought down huge numbers. When you tell people, hey, cool, we'll make a made to order, you now have to make it to order. And their manufacturing facility. They don't go through some other country or company to make the plastics. They're made in-house. They have their own factory there. And when you have 2 years worth of work basically already plotted out and figured out and like timed and planned, and then decide, well, we're going to, move all that down so that we can crank out more Indominus to fulfill these orders. That's why we saw Death Guard being late. That's why we saw Dark Eldar being late. All that stuff, like everything else got shifted because they decided to sell more Indominus. And so if it's not a situation of a damaged mold, which is very incredibly difficult to fix properly, then if it's just a situation of everything else putting them behind the 8 ball, then it's very difficult for them to decide, well, we'll crank out more to supply demand, but then everything else even slides further down and gets further and further away from where we need to be. Now, this is, I'm not trying to be an apologist here. I'm just trying to tell you what business is very frequently like and the things that I've heard. The way that they're handling the optics of it, the information flow, that's, again, not evil. I just think it's wrong. I think that, and I don't mean morally wrong, I mean I think that they're doing it wrong. Like, it's the fact that nobody really heard one way or the other which way things are going to go with Cursed City until somebody asked them via Twitter, and then they replied, and then that's the tweet that blew up and everybody got all freaky outy. That's not good marketing. Now, the thing is, and we always have to remember this, and it's a downside to some degree, is they're a publicly traded company. So if it was a privately traded company, they could make whatever decisions they want. But as a publicly traded company, they always have to make decisions based off of what the stockholders expect. They have to do due diligence. They have to do this. They have to do that. They have to make all these decisions, not off of like what's a good idea for the business even. It's what do the stockholders want, which is why I don't ever want to have any stockholders, frankly. I'm sure I won't, but nonetheless, you see what I'm saying? Like, that's a weird outside force that you have to kind of mess with. And so, I don't know. It's going to be It's going to be interesting to see. Leslie says you also had the Suez Canal shut as well. I don't know if that had any effect with this, because that stuff, like, the thing is they crank this stuff out very frequently a good deal in advance. But again, they have a schedule, and they know that we have to, like, if they were going to be manufacturing, let's just say, for example, for 2 months, just 2 months of nonstop Cursed City coming out of their plastic factory. And then let's say a month in, the mold was damaged or whatever. If they then have to wait a bunch of time to get it fixed, they can switch something maybe else in there and do that. But it's just the schedule's the schedule. One of my first jobs out of college, I worked at a label manufacturing company. And when I first got the job, I was in the art department. I was the art department. It was a very small company. So I was the art department. And there was a dude there named Rick who, for the first month I worked there, he ran the same label every single day, 8 hours a day. Like I said, it was a small shop. We didn't have 3 shifts. We just had first shift. And he would come in the morning, and he would get the press all set up, and he would get the ink and the things and all that stuff and the paper stock, and just start running this label. And he would run it for 8 hours, and then he would clean up at night, and then he would come back the next morning and run the same label. We printed 50 million of this single label, not even different SKUs or just one label. It was for a napkin package for some company that evidently was planning on shifting 50 million of these napkins. And so, yeah, so that was a month. Now, we had other presses as well. Now, the question becomes, is it smarter for every press in the place, 5 presses, to be doing this? Because then instead of for 50 million taking a month, it could have taken a fifth less time if everybody would have done that. But then every other job going through there as well then has to wait for potentially 2 weeks or a week and a half or whatever the math comes out to. And so the people who kind of figure out these schedules are the people who have these kind of ideas in mind. And I don't know how many plastic presses or whatever they call them they have at GW, but yeah, it's above my pay grade, frankly, to understand how this stuff has to work. But I can tell you the things that I've heard and the things that we've all seen, pandemic, Brexit, all that kind of stuff. And I think it kind of just comes down to a perfect storm and has messed up this particular game. And, there's that. But the worst thing that they're doing, and again, most of this stuff I'm sure is not their within their. They wish it was their fault. You know what I mean? They wish they could control it and have just done something different, but it's just outside their hands. It's the marketing and the messaging and the optics that is within their control, and that's what I think is the worst issue. I think they're kind of goofing that up by not just coming out and putting an article on the Warhammer community site and just saying, look, here's the answer. Now, there's a good chance, because this has happened before, they're doing it literally right now while I'm doing this show. Like, I haven't been looking at the chat for a minute or two while I've been yammering on like this, and I bet you somebody's going to be like, oh, hey, they just posted a thing on Warcom about how, yeah, this is the problem. And because they've done that before where I'm talking about something, and then they're like, someone, like literally in chat's just like, they just posted that. So maybe they're doing that. I don't know. But nonetheless, that's the issue so far, the way that I see it. The PR is really poor, for sure, unless they want people talking about them, then it's very smart. I don't know. There's some people that say there's no such thing as bad press, but I think that that's not necessarily the case. I mean, they don't need the industry to talk about them. The industry, they're a huge portion of the industry. They're the 800-pound gorilla. You know, if you need to like get people to learn about your company and you decide bad press is better than no press, sure, great. But when you're the biggest in the industry within tabletop wargaming, you don't need to have. Like, you want, obviously, people to talk about new product, but you don't want people to talk about new product that you can't sell them anymore. You know what I mean? Like, it just, yeah, I don't know. There are images of the damaged sprues showing up in Hong Kong. Well, that's weird, huh? Let's see here. Personally, I'm less and less interested in what GW is cranking out. More and more, my interest turns to that smaller companies are doing what's coming out of Patreon and My Mini Factory. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I really love the fact that, I mean, yeah, sure. I'll be honest. I bought, what did I buy yesterday from Games Workshop? The new Vampire Warhammer Underworlds guys, which I'm not going to play Warhammer Underworlds, but I really wanted the models, which is increasingly been more and more the case with me and GW lately. It's more like, yeah, I wasn't planning on buying or playing Cursed City, but I did really, really want the models. You know, not all of them, but a lot of them. So there's that. Same thing with Blackstone Fortress. Like, I went out to the store and bought Blackstone Fortress on the day it came out because I wanted the models. I knew that a bunch of them were going to be usable in Kill Team, and I've been hoping that a bunch of these Cursed City ones are going to be usable in Warcry. But I got to be honest, I'm just not. That's not my main focus these days. Is their games. If I'm going to be buying their stuff, it's generally because I want the models. Again, I've been really enjoying Warcry, and I'm hoping that we see kind of a resurgence of Kill Team. But 40K and Age of Sigmar, I'm just not playing. It's just not happening anymore. But there's also plenty of times when I look at those models, I'm like, I can use that in Star Breach. I can use that in 5 Parsecs from Home. I can use that in Stargrave, like kit bashing, like some of their Necrons, or not Necrons, sorry. So kit bashing some of their Necromunda stuff with some other cool stuff from different resin manufacturers and things like that, like Puppets War or Anvil Industry, things like that. You know, they still make great models, but I'm personally more and more interested in indie stuff, which is why I've been looking at places like Osprey, places like even WargameDownloads.com. No, sorry, Wargame Vault. One of these days I'm going to get that right. There used to be a website called Wargame Downloads. That was a different thing. But Wargame Vault, you can get cool PDF stuff, and like if you can't get that, there's a new space combat game made by the guy who did Gaslands. Guy who did Gaslands made a new space combat game called A Billion Suns, and it's available. You can get it from Osprey in one of those little blue books, kind of like the original Gaslands was. But no stores have it yet that I've seen in production. But if you want the PDF, you can get it from, wargamevault.com. Not an ad. I'm just saying. Excuse me. But yeah, so, I don't know. I don't look at PDFs as like, oh, I got to print that out anymore. Because I use an iPad, and it's just like, great, I have 20 books on my iPad or whatever, 20 different rule sets on my iPad, and it's nice, and I like it. And you get them like that, so that's also a benefit. I used to sell a fair bit of leatherwork to Europe and import stuff to make leatherwork in the UK as a small business. Killed half my business. Brexit. Yeah, absolutely. No, Brexit's... I'm talking to... Or I met online. I've not met her in person yet, but I met Annie from Bad Squiddo Games, and I follow her on Twitter too. And I've heard a lot of things about how like the Brexit thing. Not only is it completely confusing, but also there's no help, and it just turned on. It like they're people, all business owners are like, so what are we supposed to do? And the government's like, well, you know. And so yeah, that's not helpful. Still have piles of miniatures I bought because of FOMO back in the late 90s. My advice is just to work on what you have. Yes, that is good advice. That being said, there are times when a model comes out, especially, I got to be honest with Games Workshop right now, there's times when like a model comes out. The reason I bought those vampires for Warhammer Underworld is because I'm like, they just came out, and I know that if I wait, there's a good chance that it'll be the same exact issue that they're having with their production now, and I won't be able to get them. So they were in store, you know, bird in the hand kind of situation. So I was like, all right. And they were not that expensive. I think that they were $40 American. So, and it's 4 good models, and you know, again, you could use them for Warhammer Underworlds. I don't really see myself playing that too much these days anyway. But I definitely want the models for other stuff, and so I picked them up. But it's also a situation lately where I've been just trying to like be like, I don't need, like, just because a model's cool. If it's cool and I know what I can use it for, that's a different story. But yeah, I mean, everybody's different. Some people, like, you know, I'll be honest with you, I have a relatively large basement, and so I have space. And so sometimes I'll just buy something because I'm like, I know I'm going to use this at some point. But not everybody's like that, and not everybody should be like that, to be honest. So it's kind of up to every person on how they want to do that. But I did finally order a resin printer, which should be coming in the beginning part of May. I'm getting an Elgu Saturn, which have been hard to find. I've talked about how scalpers keep buying them on Amazon. Excuse me. The company that makes them, I have been working with them and saying, hey, I want to get one of these. I want to buy one of these from you and bypass the scalpers. Is that possible? And they're sure. And they were like, sure, we'll send you one for free, and then you can make a video about it. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm like, I just want to see if there's a way I can get one from you, purchasing it, but get it before the scalpers snap them all up. And then Thursday night, I was actually on a call with Vince. We were chatting on Google, and I got this email because I think, and it was like I said, it was late. It was like 10:30, 11 o'clock or whatever. But I think they're in China, so it's morning over there. And so I got this email saying, hey, here's a link to, I think it was AliExpress. And so I went there, and there were like 3 left at the time. And I was just like, hang on, Vince. And I bought the 3D printer. So it'll be here eventually. And between water washable resin, and it's got its own air filter built in, and I bought some extra air filters and stuff like that, and I'm going to try to put it in a separate room in the basement, kind of, our old root cellar. Hopefully that will mitigate a bunch of the issues that I mentioned in that video years ago when I talked about why I wasn't planning on buying a resin printer at the time. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see, because I'm interested in being able to print more minis. I've been painting printed miniatures recently here and there, like I did those demons that I kind of put up on Instagram a while back. Those are all 3D printed. And so yeah, it's interesting. And the benefit is that, I don't know, at least with 3D printing, if I decide to buy a bunch of STLs, they don't take up any space. You know what I mean? Like, they're on my hard drive or whatever, and they're not like just taking up space until I print one and then paint it. And then, you know, that's kind of a nice benefit too. Morning from Winneconne. How you doing? Need to focus on what I have anyways, so it works for me at the moment. Yeah, and that's the case too. I mean, there's a lot of people that... I mean, I'm currently working on the Cursed City Skeletons, and then on Twitch. By the way, if you want to know, I'm on Twitch on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time, usually for 3 hours, and Friday mornings at 10 a.m. Central Time. So the next show I'll be doing will be tomorrow night at 7 p.m. And I'll be continuing to work on the skeletons. I'm getting close to being done with them. And then after the skeletons are done, I'm going to probably work on 5 of the heroes. One of them is technically a bad guy, the skeleton captain, watch captain, so-and-so. And then there's the knight lady with the armor and the big sword. There's the kind of dandy guy with the pistol and sort of, I don't know. And there's the witch hunter dude. and the guy who looks like he has a really long tongue, but evidently that's supposed to be a beard, but I just didn't put it. I got rid of his face and gave him a cool skull face, which you can fix anything with a skull. I've been saying that for years. So yeah, that's what I'll be painting next. But I've got other stuff that I want to paint on the side, that I'm not painting on Twitch and things like that, and it's always figuring out what I can do there. How old are those roots anyway? House is about 100 years old, so probably about that long. Like, I don't know that it's called we just call that particular room in the basement the root cellar. I don't know why, but yeah. I bought a used Anycubic Photon recently, made a few prints. Some came out, some didn't. It's a learning process. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's see here. GW's communication issues around production stem from their being a publicly traded company. That's what I was saying earlier, yeah. Specifics are typically worse than rumor when it comes to effect on share price, so they stay silent. Yeah, that's the thing, is that they have to, when you're, like I said, when you're a private company, you can kind of say whatever you want, but when you're a public company, everything is always constantly, how is this going to affect the shareholders, which sucks, frankly, but it is what it is, I'll just build my own cursed city with blackjack and that's that Pachow shirt is my favorite shirt. Now I wear it all the time. Lucky I got to wear it to the lab I work to. Nice, good to hear it. Taking it to the science. The Anycubic Eco Resin is excellent as a low order, low VOC. I don't know what VOC stands for. Resin option. I highly recommend it. I've switched over from regular resins already. Not water washable though, unfortunately. The stuff that my friend Matt from Game 4, if you listen to the Game 4 podcast that we do every 2 weeks. You can find it on pretty much any place that you get your podcast from, the Game 4 podcast. We talk about general tabletop gaming stuff, like how to get into certain types of games, how to do this. There's all kinds of different stuff. Anyway, he's got the Elegoo Saturn, which is why I decided I wanted to get one. And hey, Genuine Vision, how you doing? And so anyway, he's been printing me some stuff, and he's been using the Elegoo water washable resin, and I've been real happy with it. It's worked very nice. These are just some parts. There's these sort of he's like a scary kind of demon that's got lots of, I think they're supposed to be branches and trees and stuff, but he's got like armor, and he's got a cool sword, and I haven't put them together yet, is my point. I have a lot of parts here, but yeah. But this water washable resin has been great. I've been real happy with it. Like, the quality's been good. I mean, it's a little brittle, but resin in general is a little brittle. So, yeah. But in general, I've been pretty happy with it. Volatile organic compounds. There you go. That makes sense. Worth pointing out for non-UK folks, we have only just come out of lockdown again, and most factories have been running at max 30% staff. Yeah. Even GW would struggle with this restriction. Yep, that's absolutely. Right now in Brazil, almost any city is a cursed city, unfortunately. Yeah. I've been hearing that too. Yeah, that it's definitely, things are problematic over in Brazil. So I hope that things get better soon, as soon as possible. I bought so many models during the pandemic so far, actually running out of stuff I want. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I really want out there right now, and I guess maybe I'm in the same boat. I mean, there's probably things that I haven't come across yet, like from, again, when I go onto some place like My Mini Factory and I start digging through and searching for certain things, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool, and I add it to my little favorites thing or whatever, and then maybe we'll come back and buy it later on, that kind of stuff, but yeah. I want to see someone convert Octrin Glim's Cry up as Lopan from Big Trouble in Little China. Yeah, that's the guy with the big long whatever. Like I said, the first several, like every single time I've ever seen that model, I'm always like, why has he got that weird thing coming out of his mouth? And it looked like it was like, if it was maybe a tongue or it was supposed to be some sort of magic something or other. But Vince was telling me that actually he's wearing like a mask. You're not seeing his face. He's wearing like a mask over it. And that long thing is allegedly supposed to be his beard. And I'm like, how does he learn magic when he spends all day just combing and conditioning his beard? Because I've got a beard. You can see it right here. And it's never... I mean, obviously it's not that long either, but I just can't... Every person I've ever seen that's their beard gets longer, it just goes this way. Like, it just gets crazy. Look at David Letterman, for God's sakes. I mean, like, it's So he's got this incredibly long, thin beard that comes out, and it just looked weird. It's always been a weird-looking model, but I liked the rest of it. So I was like, I can fix that, and just got rid of the, because the beard, he's also holding a staff or whatever, and the beard sort of touches the staff as it goes by to kind of add stability and stuff like that. So you have to cut it away from the staff and sand it down and everything, but it wasn't that big of a deal. It was a pretty easy kit bash to just throw a skull in there instead of having a head, and now he looks like I think I mentioned this on Instagram, now it looks like he fell off of a Led Zeppelin cover, album cover, so that's a win-win. Let's see here. Is it just me, or the video went wild just a moment before? I mean, I didn't go wild, but the video might have. I suppose that's possible. If the problem causing what's happened at Curse City is likely to affect GW's share price, then by law they have to make an announcement to the stock market before saying anything anywhere else. Yeah, I mean, that also sounds right. Have you explained how to get advanced copies? Would it fall under paid promotion policy for YouTube? I don't know if it... I don't think so. I mean, paid promotion I don't think is the same thing. That's a good question. I don't know. But as far as advanced copies, I don't remember how... Basically, I don't remember if they reached out to me. I don't think I reached out to them because I don't know who I would have reached out to. I think I got an email, basically, because I've been getting stuff from them since... And not everything. I don't get everything. I get certain things here and there. Shadespire. I think Shadespire was maybe the first thing that they ever sent me. And that's a while ago. But I think it's... I mean, I don't know if you can just reach out to them and say, hey, I got a YouTube channel. Can you send me stuff? I think it's more of they reach out to you, but I don't know that for sure. Like I said, I don't remember reaching out to them. I'm pretty sure they reached out to me. How do you spell the podcast he does? Gamefor, Gamefor. And then podcast, which is spelled like podcast. Gamefor podcast. Prestidigitation spell. Instantly cleans and tidies. I mean, it could be a magical beard, sure. I guess that makes sense. Why would you become a wizard and then have a messy beard when you can just magic it into not being messy? I guess I could see that. As a fellow beard wearer, it's clear to me that dude uses beard magic. Yeah, he's probably some sort of... what's like a necromancer for beards? Beard romancer. I don't know. No, that sounds weird. Let's see here. Magic is mustache wax and a little comb. I have not beard wax. I have beard oil, and I like it. It smells great. But then I'm oily, and I'm already oily enough. Thank you very much. I don't know that I need any more. But I do really like the smell of it. It's like bourbon and oak or something like that. Yeah, I like it. The only obviously unique thing about Curse City was the different plastic they used for the heroes might have something to do with it. Yeah, well, I don't know if it was different plastic or if it was just a different color added to the plastic. The good guys were in a lighter colored plastic, their sprues, whereas the other guys were in more of a standard gray, like I mentioned in the video where I talked about it. But I don't know that that's necessarily different plastic or if it's just a different coloration. I don't know. Because they've done that before. Like when the original Kill Team came out, the AdMech were in red plastic and the, what's his names? The Gene Stealer Cults were in a lighter gray than normal plastic. I got the Cursed City key and I don't know what to do with it. Have any ideas? Thanks. I don't know what to do. I don't have one. But I don't... Those little knickknacks and stuff like that, I personally generally have no interest in them. So, I don't know what you would do with that either. Put it on your keychain? I don't know. That's a good question. Follicle-mancy. Ooh. People who are saying that GW has to do X because they are a publicly traded company. Please shut up. They're not a U.S. company. England has different rules. I mean, they do. I'm sure they have different rules, but they're probably slightly... there's probably some things that are along the same lines, I'm sure. I mean, when you have shareholders, you constantly have to think about what the shareholders want and stuff like that. But you're right. It is a different law set over there for that type of stuff. I wouldn't mind having a prehensile beard to help with carrying shopping. I can see that, sure. What if the beard was the wizard and the body was just a vestigial method of transport? Ooh, that maybe is the case. I could see that. Maybe he mindlessly grooms his beard while he's engrossed in one of his books. It could be that. It was really long. It was really long. Necrobeard. Well, it could be that too. My friend's hunch is that they have other bigger releases to produce and are still impacted by shipping and logistics delays, so they maybe need to cycle through production faster than normal. Yeah, I mean, there's that too. Like I said earlier, when they decided, okay, we'll do made to order on Indominus, that messed up all the rest of the production schedule for the rest of 2020, which is why so much stuff was late after that. And then it just starts to kind of snowball, I think. No one is used to a pandemic, so it's very, very difficult to be like, oh, well, this is how you work in this situation, because this is all new to, well, nearly everybody. I mean, admittedly, we had one about 100 years ago, but production was a little different back then. Everything was a little different back then, so yeah, it's definitely the case. Let's see here. Showed my wife. See, this one's going to break here, this one here, this staff is going to be gone. Yeah, the Cursed City models are also very spindly, which looks cool. I'm a little amazed that I have not broken one of those skeletons yet. And not because they're so delicate that if you just touch them, you'll break them. But there have been several times so far on Twitch where I'm, gesticulating wildly, as I am wont to do. Or I move to go grab something from my wet palette, and I catch my arm on a sticky-uppy spear from one of the skeletons there and knock the skeleton over or something like that. I'm just surprised I haven't bent or broken one yet. So there's that. I guess there's that benefit. I entered a giveaway for the box set and the winner gets announced tomorrow. Recent events has increased the stakes a bit. I suppose so, yeah. By the way, love the channel. Well, thank you, Jeremiah. I appreciate it. Let's see here. I just wish there was more clear with the consumer what was happening. Yeah, I agree. I think that's the biggest mistake they're making, is they're not being kind of forthright, I think, with that. Cursed City looks so good. Everybody wants them. It seems weird to not focus on it for at least a while. Everybody assumed, frankly, including myself, that it was going to be just like they did with Blackstone Fortress, where it was going to be, hey, here's the game. It will be available to purchase for the next several years. We'll keep making more. And then we'll also make these expansions and stuff like that. The expansions were popular for Blackstone Fortress. Everything just seemed like it was going to be kind of like Blackstone Fortress, but with skeletons and beard romancers and all that kind of stuff. But it seems now not to be the case. So I don't know. They've talked about expansions a little bit, but now we're I guess the question is, do they bother with expansions? Very possibly the expansions are potentially already produced. You know what I mean? There's that too. We don't know how far out their manufacturing is. They have said, at least I think they have said, somebody has said, that's certainly the case, is that somebody has said that they generally, when you see a model and it comes out on, the first weekend that it's available to buy, that model was first popped into someone's head to some degree anywhere from 2 to 3 years previous. It's not like they were it was 3 weeks ago, they're like, we should make some new Eldar, and then they crank them out. It takes them a long time. And it's not even that, it's that they come up with designs, and I'm hearing that they 3D print them in some fashion, and then they just kind of look at them for months. People from different departments come in and go, and then make notes, and it's just they just sit there for a long time, and people kind of stare at him and go, well, what if we moved his head what if we made his head more pointy because he's an Eldar? That kind of stuff. So yeah, this is not a fast process for them. They have these things scheduled out a long time in advance. So when you think about Blackstone Fortress had come out and been out for a while, they were already starting to work on Cursed City, most likely. So it's just, yeah, it's kind of the way it works. Whole situation made me lose a lot of interest in GW models. Kind of sad. It seems to be gone forever. I got to be honest that when I had kind of stopped buying anything, mostly Games Workshop, back in the days of 7th edition 40K. I had been kind of going into... Well, I did start going... Well, that's not true. No, I don't want to say Games Workshop. I want to say maybe more 40K. I had stopped 40K all told. And then I started getting interested in some Age of Sigmar, but I was also getting interested in a lot of other things. And I think that it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea to not just be interested in one game, frankly, or even one company, because things like this can happen. I made a video a long time ago about, like, what happens when the game that you really like gets all screwed up by the company that makes it. And then if it's the only game you like, you're sort of sad and bummed out and you don't have anything to play or whatever. And that happens. And, it's the general adage of not putting all your eggs in the one basket, I guess. So, that's why I'm a big fan of spreading things around. And I know there are people out there who are angry about that. Not about me specifically, but I know a guy who gets real ticked off when anybody plays anything other than 40K. Because he only wants to ever play a 40K. And so if you're playing anything else, he's like, why? Just play 40K. And it doesn't make sense to me. Like, you don't just watch one movie. You know what I mean? Like, I only ever watch this movie, or maybe this line of movies. I only ever watch Star Wars. Well, what about the Marvel movies, or, I don't know, anything else? No. Just only one? Why would I watch? It doesn't make any sense. Spread your stuff around a little bit. You know what I mean? Spread your interests some. Personal opinion. But after what happened with Space Hulk, I generally think long and hard about new releases, whether I want it or before release, and if I decide the day I do, then I buy it straight away. Yeah, I can understand that. I hope supply gets better once they get that new factory up and running. Well, I thought they already had the factory up and running. GW is showing off new vampire characters on Warhammer Community before the game launched. Could be future expansions. Possible. I mean, they showed off these new vampires that are for Warhammer Underworld, which they just released that warband, I think, this week. I forget what they're called. But it's basically like 3 kind of vampire-y dudes and 1 sort of man-bat kind of guy. They're cool models, though. Drop Zone Commander is a great alternative, which has just revealed a big expansion. Really cool time for the game. Interesting. They're owned by TT Combat now, I think, right? I believe that's the case. We were talking a little bit yesterday in the Irregulars monthly chat, because someone in the chat asked if I was going to get into A Billion Suns, which is that space combat game I was talking about earlier that's designed by the guy who did Gaslands. I've never been a huge fan of ship combat games for some reason, and I think it's because, and somebody brought this up in chat, and I did not even think of it, but I think it's actually very close to the reason. I think it's a personality issue. Like, your little people that you're running around on the board, like this little dude, or little Space Marines, or little Necrons, or whatever, you can you personally put some sort of personality onto that person. Like, this guy, and this guy, he's crazy, and he does this, or whatever the deal is. But when it's just like, this is the 3rd ship in this fleet, I have a hard time kind of projecting or receiving a personality from a spaceship or a boat. You know what I mean? I'm glad to hear that things are going really well with Mantic and that new Armada game. I'm glad to hear that. But I just boat combat's not for me. I don't know what it is. Boat combat, ship combat, that kind of stuff. I liked Star Wars X-Wing initially because the ships were so iconic, and I was a big fan of the movies and such and all that jazz. But as it started to spread out, and all of a sudden I'm like, I've never seen this ship before in my life. You guys made this up. That's not really from Star Wars. Then I stopped caring. That, and also I didn't follow along when they went to version 2.0 of the rules and all that kind of stuff. But nonetheless, that's about the only kind of ship thing where I'm like, yep, Millennium Falcon, it's got a personality in my head, and that makes sense. A-Wings, they got a personality. TIE Fighters, they got a personality, kind of. And that's just from watching the movies. But then if it's something that, I don't know anything about dystopian wars. The ships look cool, but I just can't identify with them. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that seems to be my issue personally with space and ship combat style games. But I'm not telling people that they're wrong for digging it. I'm just saying this is the reason why I'm not super into it. But, Hello from the tip of Long Island. I got an email from my FLGS about the Curse City shortage and was lucky enough to snag one on the Fleabay for its MSRP. That's not bad. Crimson Court. Yeah, those are the guys from Warhammer Underworlds. That's a cool model line. I just ordered Necromunda Dark Uprising, so I figured I would wait a bit for Curse City. Now I wish I wouldn't have. Yeah. Let's see here. I'm so far only into GW games as they're easy to get a hold of, and I don't have to pay shipping to get a hold of the stuff. I might get the Star Wars stuff. We shall see after studio change. Yeah, the Star Wars Legion stuff has really taken off in my area. I was a little surprised, honestly. I mean, obviously Star Wars is popular and stuff like that, but sometimes it's hard to get a new kind of game rolling like that. But the Star Wars Legion has been doing well, and also, strangely enough, so has. And I guess this isn't strange either. Marvel is one of the biggest, both of them are owned by Disney. They shouldn't be that hard to, but the Marvel Lunchtime Rainbow, whatever the heck, the Crisis Protocol, that game is picking up some definite steam around here as well. Which, because of the scale difference, I thought was sort of surprising. But yeah, so far so good. Ships can have names and traditions. They can, certainly. It's harder for me to identify with a ship than a person or even an alien sometimes. I don't know. It's my own personal messed up whatever. Artisan Guild just released that's the name I was thinking about just recently. Artisan Guild just released the alpha version of their game Guilds. If you're into supporting small businesses and 3D printing minis, it would be something worth checking out. Yeah, I've got a model that a friend of mine printed me. It's a Fishman from Artisan Guild. And I couldn't remember it was one of those Patreons, but I couldn't remember the name of the company. And I was literally just thinking about it last night. So I appreciate that. Now, I will probably forget it again. What time are we at right here? So if I have to come back, 9:52. All right, well, I'll try to remember if possible. Sometimes looking at a number and remembering the number versus remembering what I'm trying to remember, it seems to be easier for me. I don't know why. I think you're thinking of Drop Fleet Commander. There's Drop Fleet and Drop Zone. Drop Zone is tiny, tiny, tiny little people with some ship support, whereas Drop Fleet is spaceships fighting each other. I think I got that right. I have only played Drop Fleet. I played a demo of it at the Valhalla in the Fall Wargaming Retreat 2 or 3 years ago. I was playing it just a little before it came out because the guy who was giving me the demo was part of the demo team in the UK, and so he had like a pre-release copy, and he brought it with him over here to Utah where the retreat was, and he gave me a demo, which was very nice. But again, not exactly my thing. Like it was interesting, but it's not exactly my thing. Having little army guys die on the board makes me sad. Ships, not so much. I can understand that too. Sure. I mean, there's a bunch of tiny people who died on the ship, I suppose. Oops, sorry. Let's see here. I was going to enter the Warhammer Day painting competition. Was wondering how hard the competition was. Thanks. I mean, if it's the Golden Demon. Like, if it's just Warhammer Day and it's a different thing, it's probably still going to be steep because, there's a lot of people who paint really, really, really well out there. But if it's actually, like, at Warhammer Day, and I don't know this for sure, if it's a Golden Demon competition, Golden Demon is very, very, very steep. I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm just saying you'll see stuff that makes the stuff in the magazines look like garbage. It's really very, like, over here in the U.S., we haven't had a Golden Demon since 2013. And we were going to have it in 2020. Golden Demon was returning to the United States, and they were going to have it at Adepticon. And then, well, now obviously we haven't had Adepticon for 2 years, but hopefully 2022 we'll get Adepticon, and then that will be finally a Golden Demon here in the States again. Little known fact, I know the guy who is the last Slayer Sword winner, which is basically best in show for the United States. Because, like I said, I interviewed him back in 2014. You can find it on the channel. His name is Tom Ailes, and I interviewed him because he's a friend of me and Sam. And back in the day, when I first started getting into 40K and 5th edition, he and I used to play Combat Patrol against each other, and he always ran Dark Eldar. But anyway, yeah, he's a Slayer Sword winner. So, you should take my advice and put wacky hairdos and novelty glasses on the ships then. I don't know that I took a class on how to sculpt hair, like hairdos, at Adepticon, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, with green stuff. And it's hard. It's kind of hard. And putting them on a boat or an airplane or a ship or whatever seems like even more hard. But, maybe I could 3D print something. We'll have to see. The interesting thing is I like the idea of playing ship combat. Hey, Carl Tuttle, how you doing? The interesting thing is I like the idea of playing a ship combat game, and I think they look cool, but they never really land well with me. Yeah, there's so many people who are crazy about Battlefleet Gothic and stuff like that, and I've just never been super interested in it. I don't know why. I don't, it just, there's something, again, I think it's the element for me where I'm like, oh, these little people, I understand that, but this boat or this ship or this, flying vehicle or whatever, it just doesn't quite land with me. I get that. I've never even looked at the DZC rule set. I just dig some of the models. They are kind of cool looking models, that's true. Someone just asked a question about BattleTech. I would legit buy a Marvel Rainbow lunchbox. There you go. Someone should make one. Lunchtime Rainbow is now my official name for it. Yeah, it seems to happen. I don't know why. Crisis Protocol is big at my LGS. Legion, sadly not so much. Oh, Legion, sadly not so much. Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, locally, well, I guess it depends on the store you go to. But the store that I go to, they've been getting heavy into both of those. Kevin at my local shop, who owns the local shop there, he had the core box for the Marvel game, and that was it. And then all of a sudden, people started coming in and ordering stuff, and now he's got a shelf, which is, I mean, his GW stuff takes up a good portion of the store. I don't know, probably a fifth of the store, maybe a quarter of the store, but he's pretty deep into the Marvel stuff too. It's been going well, so that's really good. I picked up Blackstone Fortress to play for now. Can't get the expansions, but it gives me something to play with for now. I mean, you can find some of the expansions here and there. Escalation is evidently incredibly difficult to find. I've got a friend who's been trying to find it for a while, and I've looked at my local shops and I've not found it. I don't know. I don't know how that one ended up getting sold out, because I owned a copy. I bought a copy when it first came out, and I went back and looked at it, and I'm like, honestly, they've put out other expansions that I wanted more. I picked this up because there was a couple of models in there that I kind of wanted, but the boxes that are like the more inexpensive boxes that are just Trader Guard, those are awesome. And I was like, I definitely bought one of those. I played Billion Suns the other day using Red Alert figures, but I have not seen Dystopian Wars figures, Firestorm Armada, so plenty of ideas. Nice. Axis and Allies War at Sea, the collectible miniatures game, was hugely fun, simple game. Used to run big team games, 3 players at 100 points of ships. I remember seeing that. It was one of those random pack games where you bought it and you were like, oh, I didn't, and you got a bunch of just, stuff, maybe some rares or some uncommons and things like that. And I know that it was popular among a very specific amount of people, or specific group of people. That was kind of cool, yeah. I was going to enter the, let's see here, what else? I signed up to see how it goes. I got an email saying they'll be sending me the first 2 issues. Oh, that was not to me, sorry. I'm looking at Stargrave. Ash Barker on Guerrilla Miniatures Game is using Rogue Trader minis for this crew, which has sent me down a rabbit hole of retro models on eBay. Yeah, Stargrave, I think Stargrave is going to be, here's the thing. If you like Frostgrave, Stargrave is kind of more of the same, but with a sci-fi bent to it. They have tweaked things that I like. Here's the thing that they tweaked that I like a lot. In Frostgrave, generally you had your wizard, and then you had your apprentice, and then you had your hench people, your henches. Anyway, the problem that it wasn't a problem, but it was just your apprentice didn't really mean anything. They were basically just a smaller version that was waiting for your wizard to die. Your wizard had, let's say you went with elementalism, and that was your wizard. Boom. Okay. Well, your apprentice was basically also elementalism and couldn't really do much except just be a regular pud running around. And then once your wizard eventually gets croaked, then okay, now you've got a new wizard from your basically the apprentice steps up. Let's say with Stargrave, number one, it's not so I'm only picking this particular kind of main emphasis. You still are, but you have a little bit more customization options within that. You had that in Frostgrave too, but it was a little bit more structured in that if you went elementalism, there was almost like a wheel to the different powers that the wizards could have. So if you went let's say elementalism, you could go and take some powers from some of the things that are close to that, but necromancy was way down here, and you sort of couldn't take that, and so you had all these different things. With Stargrave, they're just like, okay, cool, you're a veteran, or you're a robot handler as your captain, or you're a whatever, a psionicist. But you can also take ship fixing and this and that and a bunch of other different things. And then your first mate, in replacement of your apprentice, your first mate can take whatever the heck they want, and they can do all kinds of crazy things. So you've got a lot more customization, which I like. Yeah, so that's a cool thing too. And of course, it's got the same kind of campaign thing. It's not a game that you just sit down and just play like, oh, we're going to just play a one-off and fight each other. You can, certainly, but it's better when you kind of build the narrative and make a campaign thing, because you have the stuff that goes on in between games where, like, well, this guy got hurt, and so we have to see what happened to him, and this guy did it really well, and so then maybe he gets some special bonus, and there's all kinds of cool stuff. And you're taking in money, and you're doing searches for, I don't know, caches of weapons and all kinds of crazy stuff. So yeah, I like those types of games a lot. Any kind of campaign style game, I really dig. Let's see here. I was going to enter the Warhammer date. Yeah, you already mentioned that, Jamie. Or I scrolled back. I'm not sure. One of the two. GW got tired of people asking why the zombies got tombstones on their backs. I just don't. Yeah, I didn't like the tombstones. And the tombstones are nice. Don't get me wrong. Like they're well done tombstones. I don't know why they're. There's a reason, I'm sure, but I don't care. They look weird. I just don't like them. I don't know why. Like the big boss zombie guy, he's pretty cool looking. But the other zombies, I just like. Yeah, I don't know. Just arriving. Can we start again from the top? Not that I know of. No. Looking for some painting help. I don't use washes a lot, but I used one because there was a large area of bare skin on a mini. It's dried really blotchy. What have I done wrong, and how do I fix it? With skin like that, very frequently what happens is this. If there's a lot of smoothness going on, meaning there's not a lot of little crevices and details and stuff like that, washes work great on fur. They work great on sometimes folds in clothing and stuff like that. They'll soak down into like the dark parts here and turn into a shadow, but they'll stay away from the raised parts a little bit more. But sometimes you have to babysit them a little bit as they're drying, or as you put it on. If it starts to soak and like collect in some sort of spot because of gravity and stuff like that, you'd be like, well, that looks weird. And then you might want to suck it up a little bit with take a brush that you've mostly wiped off and there's nothing in there, and then use it to basically kind of suck up the extra wash, and then maybe move it someplace else where it needs to be moved to, whatever. That being said, with skin, using washes on skin, especially if it's a real dark wash, you're frequently going to end up having to go back and then highlight the skin again. So let's say you had a bulging muscle. I don't particularly, but let's say you did. Let's say, so the wash ends up getting into the crevice in the arm, and it also gets into like the definition underneath the bicep and blah, 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 all that jazz, which is where you wanted it to go. But it also left coffee stains kind of on the flat parts, the big smooth parts of the bulging, barbarian bicep. It's alliteration for you. You're probably going to have to take skin tone then and then paint in here to kind of bring back that highlight. And then the parts you didn't paint are going to still have a little bit of the coffee staining. And you may have to glaze. You might want to do some things like that. You might try dry brushing. Depends on the position of the model and what they're doing and all that kind of stuff. But very frequently, especially with skin, if you throw a dark wash on it, they're going to look weird. And then you kind of have to try to bring up the raised parts again with the same original skin tone. Or sometimes people will take even a slightly lighter version of the original skin tone to do the highlight. I generally like to stick with the color. Like if I painted them a specific skin tone, then threw a wash on it, which darkened everything a little bit, I then like to highlight with the original specific skin tone again, because then if I want to highlight even a little higher in some weird spot, I could then use a lighter color. And it also is less contrasty. I don't like a ton of contrast in my models. I know that is wrong. I've been told multiple times that my stuff isn't contrasty enough, but I don't care. So that's just the way that I like to paint. And again, I don't particularly want the model to look great 6 feet away. I want it to look cool here where I'm holding it. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's what I'm saying. Looking for some painting help. I just read that. My scroll window is all screwy today. Dang it. Although I've heard the rules for Legion are great, I'm considering homebrewing rules and 3D printing minis for a Gungan army just to upset the Star Wars neckbeards online. Well, Can you find Gungans? I haven't seen any sculpts, but I'm sure they're out there. Probably, yeah. You're talking about wicking or using capillary action. Yes, I like to wick. I'm a wicker. Yeah, I do that a lot, actually. If you watch me on Twitch, I'm like, I put on wash, and I'm like, oh, that's too much, and we're just going to redistribute the wealth by sucking up this stuff here and then moving it over here. And yeah, you move around your wash a lot if you're paying attention. If you just go and just slop it on there, you're going to get what you're going to get, which is sometimes going to be not what you want. So you have to kind of like move it around a little bit and that kind of stuff, certainly. Let's see here. Hello all. What time is it there, please? So I can figure out the time difference and try not to miss the start again. It is 10:06 a.m. I'm in the central time zone. If you go to... Well, okay. Now, recently we had the daylight savings time, and for some reason in the United States we started doing it earlier than everybody else, so then there's like a weird couple of weeks there where the times don't match up like they did the rest of the time of the year. Anyway, but if you go to... When I announce it on Facebook and go, hey, we're going to have the every other Sunday show, if you go to that link that's there, there will be a thing that will say, hey, it's going to start in 6 hours or whatever. And you can even set a little reminder, too, if you want to. So that's also a benefit. I had personally never used that until recently when I was going to watch... Which show was I going to watch? Oh, I was going to watch the Andy and Rem show on Andy 2D6 on his channel. I was going to watch Andy and Rem, and it was... one of those situations where normally I know that it happens at 2 p.m. my time, but it was during the differentiation between the daylight savings time, and then I was like, I don't know when it is, so I just set a reminder. So yeah, you can do that. It's kind of nice. Man, I miss conventions. I agree, Fungazi. Yes, I'm also, yes. I'm hoping to get to... I'm currently planning on going to Gen Con. Gen Con moved, not physically, but temporally. They decided to not be in August this year. They're doing it in mid-September to hopefully help just give more time for everything to heal. I don't know. We'll see. They're also limiting... There's a attendance cap, from what I understand. So hopefully I'll be able to get in, as it turns out. But hopefully I should be able to, I hope. Anyway, yeah, definitely looking forward to doing that. I was looking forward to Nova, but Nova is not happening this year. There's another small little kind of tournament-y kind of convention. Well, there's a couple little things going on in October I might try to go to. I know that Origins moved to October, but I don't think I'm going to be able to pull off Origins this year. Just because there's a bunch of other stuff happening. Like, all the conventions that are trying to still happen this year, not all of them, obviously, Gen Con's in September, but the majority of them are all trying to get together in, like, October, November, stuff like that, except that then everybody's doing that. And then, it's going to be hard. Like, as it is right now, in October, there's 2 conventions in Wisconsin that I want to go to at the same time. There is Gamehole Con, which takes place in Madison, Wisconsin, and then there's actually a convention that's normally in northern Illinois called Dragonfall, but this year it's moving to Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, to where Gary Con is. If you're familiar with Gary Con, that's a big RPG convention. And they're happening the same weekend, evidently. So there's that. I don't know. We'll see. Speaking of Dragonfall, I have not seen good old moderator Matt. He's probably... I know he was playing video games last night. He might have slept in. That's fine. We were going to chit-chat a little bit online, or I reached out to him, but he was playing Outriders? Is that a new video game? That sounds like a new video game. I'm learning to 3D sculpt in Blender, so I would sculpt my own Gungans. Oh, well, that'd be... There you go. I can see that. It feels strange not painting while watching this. Should I have brought my painting kit on my trip? Well, you don't have to all the time. What is your opinion of Warlord Games' new Black Powder Epic Battles? Great show. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you. I don't have an opinion. I don't know anything about... I've heard of Black Powder, but I don't know anything about Epic Battles, unfortunately. If it's a rank and flank style game where you're moving like units in rectangles, that's not the type of game for me. I just don't like rank and flank style games. I didn't like Warhammer Fantasy. I'm not a big fan of... and again, none of these games are bad. They're just not to my liking. Kings of War. I mean, I like a lot of things about Mantic games, but just just moving, rectangles of models is just not my jam. I don't know why. It's just not my thing. Let's see here. If the vaccine works, then everything should be fine by summer. It's kind of binary scientific reality. Well, let's all hope so. Here's the thing: is that if there's a way for us to get around science and screw things up, I think we can do it as a race. I believe in myself. Matt Sears has been here. There is no escape. Well, there you go. I didn't even realize. I just assumed that you hadn't because you were, but here you are. That's good. Glad to see you, Matt. Yeah, that's good. Let's see here. I'm not going to recover from the salt of Cursed City apparently not returning to the shelves. Yeah, I'm still not sure. I don't know if it's... that's the next question. Maybe they're not telling us what's going on specifically, directly, via some sort of official communication other than a response on Twitter, because they don't maybe necessarily know yet. If what was true, the rumor that I was talking about earlier that I'd heard about there being damage to one of the molds and that causing production to kind of stop or slow, maybe they're still waiting to see if that's going to be completely fixed or not. And then maybe the reason they don't want to say, hey, there's no more Cursed City is because maybe there is. Maybe they can fit it into their timeline of... Screen just turned black for a second there. I don't know why. Maybe they can fit it into their timeline of manufacturing and stuff like that and then produce more in a couple of months. Or who knows? I don't know. But I feel like the silence is telling to some degree. So there's that. I don't know. Adam has regressed from the age where you need to feel to play historical games. In my early 40s, I started getting into Flames of War, but honestly, it was predominantly because I had a bunch of other friends that were also getting into it. And I liked the tanks a lot, but I didn't like the infantry. I don't like moving them around. I don't like playing with them, and painting them is also a pain in the butt, kind of. But I really liked the tanks, and that was as far as I got into it. I just don't... There's a part of me right now that is still... not super interested in playing games that are real. You know what I mean? Like World War II games, and this is, again, just a personal preference. I'm not saying these games are bad. If you like it, that's great. But I kind of just don't want to play a game where somebody's grandpa was in that. You know what I mean? I don't know. Science fiction stuff, no problem. Fantasy stuff, no problem. Weird alternate history stuff, something like Conflict 47. No one's, grandfather was killed on the beaches of Normandy by a werewolf, or it wasn't shot by a laser tank or anything like that. But so for me, that's fine. But I don't know what it is, but there's something about it. And I'm not even super crazy interested in playing video games based off of actual World War II, World War I, stuff like that. As much anymore. I'm much more interested in it being something fantastical, Grand Theft Auto 5. Sure, it's supposed to be like a regular city, but it's not a real city. It's a fictional city and all that kind of stuff. Also, there are flying motorcycles and, all kinds of other weird, crazy crap. So it's alternate history or something, alternate reality, certainly. But yeah, that's just a personal thing. I'm just not interested in playing games. I'm not interested in making games of real history right now, and I haven't been for a while. So I don't know. That's just my own personal thing. I'm not saying that people who want to do that are bad. I'm just saying for me, that's just a thing I don't want to do right now. I do not like games in living memory either. Yeah, same here. Now, again, if we're talking about, let's say, ancients, we're talking Visigoths versus whoever the Visigoths fought. I don't really know my history that well, to be honest, as well. That's almost so long ago that nobody's grandpa was I was killed by the Visigoths. That doesn't happen. Yeah. So that's a different story. If you get into Saga, and although now Saga's got magic in it, I think, doesn't it? Doesn't the newest version have a magic add-on that you can put on there if you want to? So that's fine too. I don't have a problem with that. That being said, I know a guy who plays Saga, but he doesn't live nearby. And I don't know anybody locally who plays Saga. I don't know. I think I've said this before. I kind of need some werewolves and laser tanks in my historical games if I'm going to go down that road. I loved Dust Warfare. Loved that game. That was super cool. It was a lot of fun. The new Dust 1947, I have read the rules and I was not as impressed as I was with Dust Warfare, frankly. That being said, they have added Cthulhu now into Dust 1947, which is kind of cool. I've almost pulled the trigger on buying the Avatar of Cthulhu model just because he's cool looking. But I already have at least a couple different Cthulhus that I probably need to paint, so I haven't pulled the trigger on that. Politics intrude on the enjoyment of some historical games. It's a fact of life, seen it for decades. That's why I only play historical games rarely and with people I know well. Yeah, I can understand that too, absolutely. Flying motorcycles, is Adam an Oppressor Mark II user? Indeed. Cat police flying around doing, I was going to say doing crimes, but I mean stopping crimes. With the Oppressor Mark II, yes. Let's see. I also have the Hydra, which is kind of like a Harrier. That's pretty fun. That's good for stopping crimes. Visigoths fought the Invisigoths. Yeah, that makes sense. I get that. Or the Hot Topic Goths, also possible, yeah. I tried to get into World War II games, but I had a surreal moment where I found myself taking pride in a well-painted Nazi, and I just stopped. Yeah, that's also problematic there, too, yeah. Hey, Gaddis Gaming, how you doing? Is there going to be a Tabletop Minions Expo this year? No. I reached out to my contact at the university, and if we're going to be doing it in June again, like that's when I generally want to do it, it's just they're not still running events yet. So, slightly unrelated, as I was driving by the convention center downtown yesterday, parking lots were full for the first time in forever. Found out there's a giant wrestling convention going on there. No idea. But they were like, you have to wear masks. So I guess we'll see how that works out. As far as Tabletop Minions Expo this year, I have a suspicion it's going to be virtual. We were just talking a little bit about that yesterday. Seems like lots of people feel that way about historicals, though it does feel like a Gen X thing. Yeah, that could be too. I could see that. Like Gaddis Gaming's got Empire Falls or Empire's Fall. I can never remember which one the plural is. And that's alternate history, which is why I backed the Kickstarter for that, and that is coming when it's coming. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I was killed by the Visigoths. I want that in the next Tabletop Minion shirt after our Nick T-shirt. Sure, there you go. I never knew why I didn't see Dust more, because those minis are awesome. Yeah, I loved, well, because initially it came out and it was Dust Tactics. And I forget who owned Dust Tactics at first. Was it Fantasy Flight Games? I think it was. Because then it went to somebody else, and then Fantasy Flight was a jerk about it, sort of, and put everything on super discount, and I forget what that happened. But Dust Tactics as a game itself was a game that was just played on a big grid, which I was kind of like, that's not my jam. Then Andy Chambers, he's a super great game designer, designed a bunch of the early 40K stuff and all that kind of stuff. And then Mac Martin, who designed the initial couple of versions, at least the first version of Malifaux, they got together and wrote Dust Warfare, which was a standard, normal, no grid, measure with a tape measure, blah, 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 type of regular miniatures game based off of those models. And that was super awesome, and I loved that game. And I bought a bunch of different models, and they were super fun to paint because they were basically already pre-primed, and you didn't have to put them together a lot. They were like the guns that would go on the side of the walking tanks and stuff like that you would put on separately for painting and stuff, but it was really easy to do. And so I did that, and I bought a bunch of stuff like that, and then there was whatever happened, and it went to somebody else, and then there was problems. And that game, now it's... Hey, Diesel. He's... What? He wants to go outside. That's all he wants to do these days. He's feeling better, Diesel is, but he is still... I don't know, he's not eating as much as we would like. Empire's Fall. I can't remember if it's Empire Falls or Empire's Fall, but Empire's Fall. I will try to remember that. You remember it too, Diesel. But, so, yeah, I don't know. I just wish that game, now it's owned by a company called, I think, Dust USA, which is led by Paulo Parente, who's the guy who originally came up with the artwork and the concept for the whole Dust universe thing and all that stuff. And so that's very cool. But I just don't, I know there are rules in there for not playing it on a grid, but I just, like I said, I downloaded the rules, which is nice. I appreciate that. I like the fact that there's a nice, like, PDF download, check out, see what you think. I could see, like I said, buying some of the models to use for other stuff maybe, but it seems to be doing well, though. Other people are enjoying it, and that's cool. So if we all dress up as wrestlers, can we do TMX? That's what I'm hearing. I mean, maybe. Interesting point. The Insane Clown Posse was also supposed to be at this convention, literally like 2 miles from my house, but they were unable to make it. So but they still had the regular convention. So we did a virtual 2020 TMX on Discord. Super keen for virtual 2020 or TMX 2021 on Discord. Yeah, I was not able to come to the virtual 2020. That entire weekend I had this incredible intestinal distress and I was sick as a dog. So I'm going to try real hard not to do that again this year. Diesel. It's getting crotchety in his old age. Yeah, it was Fantasy Flight. Glad I was able to get a walker from both the Germans and the Americans. Awesome model. It's going to be a blast when I get them. But it went from Fantasy Flight to somebody else, didn't it? And then I forget who that was. I could be wrong. Andy Chambers is also a Skaven playing legend. He's a good guy, too. Yeah, I talked to him actually at Adepticon, 2017 maybe? Like, I was watching a friend of mine playing a game, and then, like, this guy walked up and was standing there, and then I just looked at him, and I'm like, oh, that's Andy Chambers. And then we just started up a conversation. I don't know if he knew who I was, but I knew who he was. I'm thinking there are 1 or 2 expansions. They're already done with just about for Curse City. I mean, that's possible, yeah. Sounds like Diesel is meowing dad. I mean, he might be. I don't know. Yeah, he's not been in great shape lately. And I was telling the folks yesterday on the Irregulars chat, he was pretty sick and he wasn't eating and wasn't drinking. And he's old and he's got cancer. But we got him into the dentist. No, we got him into the veterinarian, and they said he needs more steroids because we've been giving him steroids for his appetite and just general well-being. At their, they've been telling us to do it. We didn't just go find a bunch of steroids and give them to him. That'd be weird. But yeah, and so we bumped it up from half a pill a day to 2 pills a day. And like yesterday, he went outside at least twice. And he's still not eating great, but he's eating better, and he's drinking water again and stuff like that. So hopefully we'll have him for a bit longer. We'll see. But yeah, he gave us a big scare this particular week, I tell you that. Chambers is the best designer that Games Workshop ever had. Britt Priestley was pretty good too, I think. But I do like Andy Chambers' stuff. Like I said, when he worked with Mac Martin to do Dust Warfare, I really loved that game. It was super cool. It was Fantasy Flight and then Battlefront. That's right. The game went from Fantasy Flight to Battlefront, and then when Battlefront got it and started selling stuff, then Fantasy Flight dumped all their stock at 50% off or something like that. And I felt like it was a dick move, frankly. Like they lost the license to Battlefront, or there was some sort of problem where those two companies got shirty with each other. And yeah, Battlefront got it and started selling the stuff, and then all of a sudden, Fantasy Flight still had all this stock in warehouses, and they're like, hey, we're selling them all for 50% off, and that was kind of mean. But what are you going to do? That's right. And now Dust Studios has it. Paulo Parente is doing a great job with it. Yeah, like I said, they've added a bunch of new stuff. Like they've added an entire new, at least 2 new, because when I was playing it, it was just the Axis, the Allies, and the Russo-Sino Coalition, or the Sino-Soviet Coalition. Or Union. Sino-Soviet Union, the SSU, which was basically the Chinese and the Soviets working together. Since then, from what I know, and this is just what I've seen, I'm not super duper into it, there's the Cthulhu people, and then there's also, I think, Japan, or the Indo-Japan something or other group. And some of the models for the Japan stuff is really super cool, too. So, let's see here. Andy Chambers is a minor deity to epic freaks. Guilty. His epic orc army inspired my own mania for paint small, game big. Nice. Today on the show, Diesel shows us how he shades Dark Eldar. Wow. I don't think he's... Now Diesel can squat 300 pounds. He cannot. He's only 10 pounds now. He used to be 18 pounds back in his heyday, and we just took him into the vet, and he's 10 pounds. He's a skinny little old man now. Sorry to hear Diesel's having a rough go. I've had so many pets in my lifetime, and it's heartbreaking. Yeah, when their lives are so short in comparison to ours. Yeah, no, it's true. Just finished the Chaos Space Marines I was working on. Now on to the base. Nice. Let's not forget Taumus Pirinen among good designers. I'm not familiar with that name. Interesting. I agree, Adam. I have night haunts that I use in Frostgrave, etc. Oh yeah, they would be great in Frostgrave. They would be also probably pretty good in Rangers of Shadow Deep, same designer. Yeah, but yeah, there's a lot of great games where that's the thing is that when you're playing like some of these indie games, I love the concept, frankly, of miniatures agnostic games because you get a rule set, and then that's great and it's got all kinds of stuff. But then you get to have the fun and the creativity of either going through your current models and going, cool, I can use this to represent this and I can use that. Or you get to kit bash stuff and put it together, or you get to 3D print stuff that you find. You're like, oh, I really need some sort of robots, and I don't, nothing really fits the bill, but this model on My Mini Factory or patreon.com/whatever really does the jam. And so therefore I'm going to get it printed either by a friend or I've got my own printer or whatever. And you're going to go down that road. And it's very cool. So yeah, I really like that. That's the thing that helps me, I think, with my hobby is to being able to not just be like, oh, you're playing this army, well, these are the guys. These are the boxes you have available to you. You buy them, or you don't. I guess. And I like being able to kind of in that hobby aspect. And I know there's people out there who are like, I don't want to think about it real hard. Just tell me what to buy. I get that. That's fine. But I like to be able to kind of make some changes and tweak things and personalize a little bit more. I think that's important. Oops, clonk. Sorry. Absolutely loved Andy Chambers' Starship Trooper game. Oh, I didn't know he did Starship Trooper. I have a hardcover copy of that somewhere. Down in the basement, I know I do. And I even had some of the original... I had some of the dudes, like the troopers. I never bought any of the aliens, I don't think. But I did have at least 1 or 2 boxes of the troopers that I bought. At the time, not when it came out, but later on when everything was on super crazy heavy discount. Yeah, that game, I don't know what happened to it, but it did not take off, that's for sure. So there's that, yeah. What's the point of getting into a game where you can't get the minis you want? That's the thing is you can use, again, the benefit of tabletop gaming is that you can do whatever you want. You want to tweak the rules, tweak the rules. You want to use different models, do that. Now, if you want to play competitively at a tournament, then you can't do either of those things. You can't really decide, hey, let's make the rules different, because that doesn't work. If you're the tournament organizer, you can decide, we're not going to follow this rule, or we're going to change the way this one works. That's fine. But on a person-by-person basis, you can't just decide to tweak things. When you and your friend want to sit down in the basement or your living room or wherever you play and play a game, if there's a rule in it that you don't like that you want to change or get rid of, or something you want to add to make it a little bit more interesting, amongst my local friends, we used to have a special rule that when you were rolling to seize initiative in 40K, you could choose to do that, certainly. And for the most part, everybody always did, because there was no downside. And we thought that was a little weird. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm going second, so I'm obviously going to try to seize the initiative because it's so beneficial in that game to go first, which is still so stupid in the way the design is, but nonetheless. So what we did was, if you decided I'm going to try to seize the initiative, you could roll, but on a 1, that was like an epic failure in seizing the initiative, and then I forget exactly what the negative was, but there was some sort of thing that happened in the first turn that happened to you that was basically that you were gambling. Like, if you're like, I'm going to try to seize it, there should be a downside, because otherwise you just obviously always try to seize it, which is just a weird command, So we were like, we're going to make it that if you try to seize it and you epically fail, then you get a negative too. And then that makes you think, do I want to try to seize it or not? So yeah, that's kind of interesting. Let's see here. So what is the deal? What is the deal with Cursed City? I read that in Seinfeld's voice. It's about a city and it's cursed. That's a good point, Ross. It seems, and we don't know this for sure yet. There was a tweet that went out earlier this week that, well, I take that back. It was a response to a tweet. Somebody tweeted at the Warhammer community Twitter, the Warcom Twitter, and said, hey, are we going to see more of this or not? Because it's sold out on the website. It's just a 404 page. It's not even listed on the website anymore, blah, blah, blah. And Warcom said, yeah, no, that's all of them. Which a lot of people got mad at the Warcom community, or seems redundant, doesn't it? The Warcom people, it's not their fault. They don't drive the company. They are just being told, very probably, this is what you need to say. And, there it goes. There's a whole host of potential issues. We don't know the answer as to why they aren't making any more. There's Brexit. They haven't come out and said this is what we're doing. Everybody assumed, and also there was some backup, like in the original messaging about Cursed City, that this was going to be a model that was going to follow pretty closely along to the way it did for Blackstone Fortress. Blackstone Fortress base set was available for 2 to 3 years during the run of that, and then they kept releasing expansions as well. And now we have no idea what's going on with Cursed City, other than that's one reply to a tweet that said, yeah, there's no more of them. So if you're interested in getting it, and you know you can't get it from the website anymore, obviously reach out to your local stores. Give them a call on the phone before you drive over there and say, hey, do you have it? Because a lot of local stores do. Not all of them, but some of them do. And I'm not even just talking about Warhammer stores. I'm talking about independent stockists, as they call them. It's there's a lot of them that have it. You know, there was all the fervor and gnashing of teeth about how Indominus sold out almost instantly, and oh my goodness, I can't believe this. And every store in my local area is still, in April of 2021, has still got copies of Indominus sitting on the shelf. So, you know, it's not like... The thing is that, sure, the website sold out, but that doesn't, you know, you can get it other places. Now, you may not have a store within 300 miles of where you live, and that I understand. But if it's just a situation of, like, I just never like to buy from my local store for reasons... I don't understand that, but you should reach out to your local store, because there's a good chance they may have the Cursed City. That's not the Cursed City, but just Cursed City. And so you could, you know, shop local, and that could be also helpful. So, but we'll see if it's something that actually, I don't know. We're not sure. But I think that the biggest issue right now is not so much, oh, they screwed up production, oh, this happened. There's a lot of things going on in the world right now that they've got no control over. There's a lot of things going on in the world that none of us have any control over. But what they do have some control over is they could be putting out an article saying this is the issue currently. And the reason that I believe that they're not able to do it right now is because they're a publicly traded company, and stuff has to go from the shareholders almost to some degree down. Certainly from management, upper management, all that kind of stuff. If they were a privately traded company, then they could kind of say whatever they want. But because they're on the stock exchange and all that kind of stuff, and it's admittedly the UK stock exchange, not the United States stock exchange, so the laws and the things are different. That all being said, the best way that they can fix this at this point right now is to say something other than replying to a tweet. So yeah. But all that being said, don't rag on the people at Warhammer Community, because they're, again, not driving the ship. They are just the messengers, who you're not supposed to shoot, from what I understand. So there's that. There we go. Anyway. My comment was more saying that I like the look of the Dust 1947 minis, but so many of them have seemed to be out of stock on the website. Oh, I didn't realize that. Huh. I don't know that I've ever looked at their website to buy anything. I've seen it, because I've seen the stuff in stores. Yeah, that's why, like, I've seen that Avatar of Cthulhu in stores, and I've been like, yeah. It's like $50. He's not crazy expensive, but he's pretty cool. I haven't opened my copy of Indominus yet. My question is, should I get a second copy? I mean, I don't know. That's a good question, I guess. You know, like, if you want a whole bunch of Space Marines or a whole bunch of Necrons, it's not a bad idea. Hey, man, you got them Cursed Cities? You got them? Yeah, there you go. Cursed City is not totally erased, but if you put delivery to rest of the world, you can't buy it in Chinese language. Huh, you can buy it in Chinese language. Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Greetings from Texas. I'm glad I caught the show. Can't stay long. I'm getting my COVID shot. Nice. I'll be getting my second one this upcoming week. Unfortunately, it's going to be on Thursday. So hopefully I don't feel really, really lousy on Friday, because Friday is when I do one of my Twitch streams, and I'm hoping that I'm not feeling super bad or anything. My mom got both of hers and didn't have any problems at all. My wife, when she got her second one, she felt very fatigued for like the day after, and then that went away. But I've got another friend, and she was on the bathroom floor throwing up for a good portion after the second shot, like the next, like for like, I don't know, 18 hours, and it just disappeared. I don't know which one she got. So I think it treats everybody a little differently to some degree, so we'll see. I do think it'd be extremely unlikely that they would sink so much money into production and advertising and pull it completely. Something else is happening there. Exactly. Like I said, I think there's something else. Like there's no reason that they would be like, hey, we did all this stuff and all this build up, and then boom, yep, those are the copies, and that's it. Done. Have a good day. Like there is something that's going on, and again, I don't think it's nefarious. I think that it is to some degree, a perfect storm of a lot of different things going on, and it's a bummer. But yeah. All I'm interested in from Cursed City are the zombies and the skeletons, which are supposed to be getting their own release, so I'm passing on it. I mean, they did that same if they're going to follow along the same type of path that Blackstone Fortress did, Blackstone Fortress released the cool Trader Guard dudes separately, which was awesome. I think did they do the weird goat people guys too? There was some other set that they released too where I was like, they're like the more chaos-looking dudes, not the Trader Guardsmen, but the other guys, a lot more shirtless folks, if I remember correctly. And I was like, those are very cool as well. And I think I did pick up a box of those as well. A bookstore near where I work has 3 copies of Cursed City. Just saying, check bookstores that carry games. That's also true. Yeah. Everybody is different, but I got the Johnson & Johnson shot, and it felt like I had the flu for 8 hours, and then I was fine the next day. Yeah. Lifeblader says I had a slight headache for about an hour the next day, and that was it. When I got the first shot, my arm was sore for like a little bit, but that was about it. Nothing bad. Fatigue is common, yeah. That protein spike is for real, says Emily. Hey, Emily. But worth it. I'll get my second one tomorrow. Nice. Yeah, I'm getting mine on Earth Day, Thursday. Abyssal Cultists. Yep, those are the guys. That was a cool box, too. They should at least be somewhat transparent and let us know what degree is going on. Yeah, I mean, that's what a lot of people are saying, and we're hoping that they eventually do. But like I said, I have a suspicion that they may have to run a bunch of things by upper echelon folks and potentially even shareholder stuff. I don't know. That's a good question. Any suggestions on a skirmish-type game with an easy rule set that I can use to help introduce friends who don't play war games to the... I've looked at one-page rules, but I'm open to other choices. If you like fantasy stuff, the best rule set in my mind for teaching people how to get into miniatures at all is a game called Song of Blades and Heroes. And it's by a company called Ganesha Games. Or is it Ganesha? It's Ganesha or Ganesha, whichever. It's the Indian elephant god thing. Yeah, that's the rule set that I teach at conventions. So when I go to like a local general tabletop gaming convention where there's tons and tons of board gamers and some Magic players and some RPG people, and usually at local conventions that are tabletop conventions, us war gamers are, of the 4 genres, the least represented. So I will go and set up a 3x3 map, a little board where, well, not a board, but like it's a mat, it's cloth or whatever. And I'll set that up and I'll put a bunch of medieval type ruins on it, and then I have a whole bunch of skeletons that I have, painted and all that kind of stuff. And I have a necromancer and I have my Cairn Wraith and all that kind of stuff. And then the models the people that I'm teaching the game, the models that they get to use are old D&D, that kind of like HeroClix kind of rubbery pre-painted models that D&D, like Wizards of the Coast made a D&D skirmish game for a while where you bought a package and you didn't know what was in it and you got, oh, look, another Mind Flayer. Great. Anyway, so I bought a bunch of those singles, and so I have these little 3 to 4 person war bands for each player. So this player has, I think it was 3. So you got like 3 dwarves, and you got 3 humans, and you got 3 whatever. And so they're supposed to be fighting against the skeletons. And so it's a very simple game to teach, but it has a very elegant kind of smart rule set. And so yeah, if you're into fantasy at all and you've got a bunch of fantasy models, you could very easily teach people how to play Song of Blades and Heroes. It's a great game. Ganesha Games also has a bunch of other games based off of that same rule set. So if you're looking for sci-fi, they've got Mutants and Death Ray Guns is another one. There's another one called Flying Lead. All of those basically kind of use the same system. They're just sort of tweaked in different ways. If you're into like vampires and werewolves and stuff like that, there's a version of that game called Fear and Faith. But definitely check them out on the internets. Just ordered a 3D printer. Wish me luck as I dive into the print hole. Well, don't dive into your printer because that's not a good idea. You'll get sticky at the least. Hey, useless wizard, how you doing? I get my second on the 27th. My first one just gave me a sore arm. Yeah. Song of Blades and Heroes. Good fun mini agnostics is Ian Clark. Yep, I agree. I struggled through work after getting my shot on Tuesday. Then I found out on Friday that they're letting people take free time off for vaccine symptoms. Yes, we have that as well at my job, which is nice. The downside is that I get it on I get it on Thursday, and then I'm usually off Fridays anyway because I'm Twitch streaming and stuff. So anyway, would that Ganesha game be suggested for an 8-year-old? Nephew likes the models but struggles with rules. Yeah, I have definitely taught it to people who have kids around that age group, so like sometimes at the convention it'll be like a dad and a son or something, or a daughter. They'll say, hey, would this be fine for little Johnny or Susie here? I don't know if that's actually their real names. And yeah, it's not that difficult. The main kind of rule, if there's a basis to the game, it's that when you want to activate a model, the model has a quality. Let's say it's 3 up or 4 up or 5 up. If it's 3 up, that's better than 4 up or 5 up. And then what happens is that you can roll on any given turn when you're going to activate a model, you can roll up to 3 6-siders. And then for every success, meaning if you've got a quality of 3 up, a success is 3, 4, 5, or 6. Whereas if you've got a success of, or if you've got a quality of 5 up, it's only in a 5 or 6 that you get a success. For every success you roll, you get to do an action. So you could do 1, potentially 2, or even 3 actions. So it might be like I move, and then I fight. Or I move, and then I use 2 actions to take an aimed shot. So it's not only just I'm going to shoot my bow, but I'm actually going to like sit there for a second, really aim, and then you get like a benefit to hit and stuff like that. The problem is that, now your question is, why wouldn't you just always throw 3 dice so you get as many actions as possible? Well, here's the downside. If on any single roll you ever roll 2 failures, your turn's over and it goes to your opponent. So if you just roll 1 die on a model, you can never roll 2 failures on 1 die. So you may not get a success at all, and then you go on to your next person, but you basically just to keep, it's not back and forth, you get to keep going through everybody in your group until you're done. But if the very first person was your turn, okay, cool, this guy, first guy, I'm going to activate him, I roll 2 dice, and I roll 2 failures, my turn's done, and it's back to you. So you have this sort of push your luck mechanic, where you're like, well, I could either just roll 1 and maybe get to move, but maybe not, but I still get to activate somebody else. If you get to the last person in your group, you always roll 3 on that person because you're going for broke at that point. Even if you screw up, well, it's going to be my opponent's turn next anyway because this is the last guy I have to activate. So you kind of like have that sort of mindset going on as well. It's really interesting. I really dig the game system. It's very well done. And but that's the general kind of like activation scheme throughout all the different games, is this either 1 dice, 2 dice, or 3 dice thing. And then, because sometimes you're lucky, or sometimes your model is good. Like your leader might be a 3 up or 4 up, and so it's not that hard to get maybe 3 ups, 3 successes in a single roll, and then you get to do a whole bunch of cool stuff. But there's also a good chance that 2 of those could be failures. Now you'd still get to do the 1 activation because you had at least 1 success, but then your turn would be done. That's a real bummer when it's the turn's just come to you, and in your first person you go, oh, well, all right, back to you. That's just the way the game works, so you have to take that into consideration. But it's very cool. Let's see here. Great game. I and the wife take round to people is a 2x2 plywood board for Dead Man's Hand, with a really useful box of buildings and figures. Dead Man's Hand. Why do I know that name? I'm not familiar with that game, I don't think. I did hear that Wargames Atlantic released a set of space lizards with lasers, or was that some fever dream? Or did I hear? I don't know. I haven't looked at their website in a while. I should probably check it out. Have you listened to Northern Exile YouTube videos on working for GW? Some great inside skinny on how the retail side of GW works. I haven't heard that, no. Let's see here. Going out in the Calgary snow to get coffee. See you guys later. Well, have fun in the snow. Hopefully the coffee's good, What army are you currently working on? I'm not usually working on armies so much these days. It's a lot more war bands. Right now on Twitch, I'm painting Cursed City Skeletons. Next will be Cursed City kind of heroes, plus also the Watch Captain, who's not technically a hero. He's a bad guy, but, close enough. But I think on the side right now, I am prepping a Warcry warband for Slaves to Darkness. I got the start collecting box for Slaves to Darkness, and I built the Chaos Warrior model, who did not come in that box, but I got him someplace else. And then there's the Chaos Warrior on Krakadrak, or whatever the heck that dumb dog thing that he's sitting on is, which, anyway, I tried building that, I failed, and I went on eBay and bought one pre-built. And then that person never even bothered to shave off the little nubbins when you cut it off the sprue, because that person's a monster. So I spent actually a little bit of time yesterday doing that, which is hard to do when the model is built, as it turns out, but whatever. So, so I guess that's probably Slaves to Darkness for Warcry is probably my next kind of project there. But then I also have got some Zona Alpha stuff that I'm trying to figure out. Like, I'm trying to build a list for military folks for Zona Alpha, and then look at what I have, what the models that I bought from Anvil Industry. I bought a bunch of resin stuff from them, and then try to figure out how I should build them based off of my initial list, and then build the right stuff. But I would like to work on that as well. But then I've also been working on the secret project, which has been taking up a ton of time, which I'll be able to hopefully tell you about next month, which will be great. Let's see. Dead Man's Hand is a great Western skirmish game done in the vein of the old Western movies. Simple rules, quick action. I thought I'd heard about that. I know there's another one called Knuckle Duster that I have seen at... Or is Knuckle Duster the name of the company? I just remember seeing Knuckle Duster at the... at Gen Con, not Gen Con, Adepticon. They had a booth at Adepticon. How do you fail building a model? It didn't go together right, because it's a piece of garbage. It's this dumb model from this... You can only get it in the start collecting box, from what I understand, and it is this Chaos Lord riding on this big lizard dog thing. And it just... I couldn't get the model to go together right, no matter what I did. And you would say, well, that sounds dumb. You must be a moron. And probably. But it's also the squirreliest model I've ever seen. Like, it is so many parts for such a simple sculpt. He's not even very dynamic. He's not got a big weird claw raised. He's not doing anything. He's not rearing up. He's nothing. He's just a lump that this dude is sitting on. But, like, each side of him is like 5 pieces. Like, they're all weirdly sort of Tetris together and stuff. And there's a lot of push fit posts and I just couldn't get any of the parts to sit right. And I've never had that trouble before. But the other thing too is that on the other hand, luckily he's also covered in very sharp spikes. So when you're trying to hold the model together for the glue to set, I literally drew blood on my. There was blood. I broke the skin. I mean, I love the detail on GW models. Don't get me wrong, except that when you have to squeeze them really hard and they poke you. I just didn't have any luck, and I got real tired of it, and I was like, I'm going to look on eBay, because I knew that there's somebody out there who's built that model but not painted it, because that's the standard, what you find on eBay, and I did. So I found it, and I ordered it, and showed up. And it was built properly, and, hooray, but it was not built properly in that they didn't scrape mold lines, and they also didn't even, when you cut a thing off of the sprue, and then the piece has that little extra kind of nubbin, and then you kind of shave that off, the person had not even done that. So I had to go through all of that, but whatever. Now I'm going to texture his base, and then I'll start priming those guys. But I think I was going to originally do those on Twitch, but I think I might do those as a side project. We'll see. They still might end up on Twitch. We're not sure. Let's see. Gut Shot is another fun Western game. I helped place test it about 15 years ago. Well, that's a fun name a little bit. I mean, it just sounds nice. I mean, it doesn't sound like... Obviously, it's bad to get shot in the gut, but Gut Shot just has a good vocal thing to it. D Meep asks, or says, Mac Martin designed second edition Malifaux, not the first one. He came in at second. Okay, that's right. I knew he was in the early editions. I know he didn't do third, but yeah, he did second. Yeah. Let's see here. Let me see. I kind of liked my Chaos Lord on Karkadrak. The feet were weird, though. Yeah. just, I don't know. He sort of seemed like a big lizardy kind of bulldog. I don't know, but not even with bulldog personality. You know, bulldogs get that kind of like those front legs, and they kind of got. This is just, I don't know. He just is a bit of a lump. I just didn't like the sculpt. Honestly, the picture I thought looked a lot better, and it's weird because very frequently you'll see a picture like the Star Drake from Age of Sigmar for the Stormcast dudes. You look at that picture and you're like, that looks weird. But when you see it in person from different angles, you're like, oh, that's not so bad. And this one's the opposite. The picture was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I see it in full, and I'm like, oh, that's not great at all. I don't know. It's very strange. Who doesn't file their nubbins? I know. That's my question. Definitely. The Harlequin Death Jester is the only model so far I had trouble building. I had some trouble as well with the Corvus Cabal, because there are times... You know how like a lot of the GW stuff is like, you know, like it's obvious that this part fits with this part, and they make it, sometimes even there's little posts and cylinders and all that kind of stuff. There were parts of the Corvus Cabal where I'm like, I assume that this is right. Like nothing snapped together or even puzzled together nicely. You're just like, I'm assuming this goes here kind of. And the drawings weren't great. I don't know. The Corvus Cabal gave me a bit of trouble. And like I said, this dude gave me some trouble as well. Shadows of Brimstone, great Weird West game. A little bit more of a, what do you call it, like a gateway game, I think. It's a little bit, it heads a little bit kind of more into the kind of board gamey stuff, but yeah, there is tons and tons and tons of Weird West stuff, that's for sure. Relic Blade. Relic Blade's a fun game too. I mean, it's not Wild West. It's a fantasy skirmish. It's over there. I got my Kickstarter for 2nd edition, and I should probably paint those guys eventually too. Those I think I would like to paint on maybe Twitch. Let's see how that goes. My boyfriend put the box together, but then said afterwards that the knights were worthless. But the Lord is a monster in combat. Still kicked his butt with my daughters. Yeah, I mean, I kind of wanted him just to have some options for heroes in Warcry. And I'm thinking about building the knights, but I need to look at their stats in Warcry to see if it's worth it, because I've heard that they're also a little squirrely to build. Like the normal dudes, like the normal regular Slaves of Darkness Chaos Warriors, they were super crazy easy to build. Very nice. The nice models, I liked them. And a lot more, because I've got Chaos Warriors from back in the day, back when they were rank and flank on the square bases, and they're just very much like this. Like they're holding a shield in front of them, and they have their stick like this, and they're like, you know, because they had to be in groups. Well, these are the new Slaves of Darkness, and they're a lot more dynamic. They're holding their shields out, they're swinging a thing, and because they don't need to be butted up against everybody else in the group anymore, you know, in rank and flank. Well, rank, really. So there's that, which is nice. But and they were fine, but that and the normal Chaos Lord that did not come in that box that I bought separately, easy build too. But this Chaos Lord on Jack of whatever, it was hard. Let's see here. Everyone else can obsess over GW and Cursed City. I'm obsessed over Tabletop meaning the secret project. Coming soon, like I said, definitely. And I'm not just messing with you guys. It's definitely, yes. Lord Discordant for Chaos Marines is very fiddly. Is he the guy riding the giant weird spider dude? Or is that something else? That sounds, yeah. It's funny how GW makes these push-fit models that they call easy to build, but the more complex ones are often trickier than normal models. Lord knows I had some difficulty with the Age of Sigmar starter dragon guy. I mean, it kind of depends. Like some of the, like I said, those warriors, easy, super easy. The skeletons I built for Cursed City, not a problem at all. Great, easy. But I think sometimes they're working now. The Witch Hunter dude for Cursed City, a little. I feel like they're working themselves into a situation where they're trying to get a little too fancy. I don't know, and I don't want to sound like a jerk here, but like I said, this lizard dog thing from the Slaves of Darkness, they're like one half of his body. I feel like sometimes, and I don't know this for sure because I'm not a professional in any of this, as far as like, you know, figure design, manufacturing, all that kind of stuff. But I feel like, especially with how not very dynamic his pose was, a good portion of half of his body could have just been one piece. But instead it was like 3 pieces, and I think that they do that to better fit it into the sprues, or to make it so the sprue is skinnier this way so they can fit it into the box easier, or I don't know what. But like there's parts where like the front part of his arm, you had to kind of hook it behind the part of his arm, his leg that stuck out over here, and then you had to get this part to glue together and set, and then that was completely dependent on the other half, and that's when the posts had to go into the holes, and if you didn't build both of them perfectly, they wouldn't sit right, and it was just, I don't know. And that Witch Hunter guy, too, he's made up of a bunch of weird parts, and sometimes I think they're doing it so that they can hide the gaps, so that maybe like the model goes together so that the gap is actually underneath the flap of his cloak, and then you don't see the gap, and that's fine. Except then that guy with the big long beard, or potentially tongue, or maybe Laffy Taffy, or whatever's coming out of his mouth, Glimskry, Jack Namble, whatever his name is, that guy's model is a piece of garbage. Not only does his cloak have the giant Scooby-Doo zipper kind of gap running down the middle, but it has another one on his shoulder that goes off in another direction and behind like some stuff on his back. Like there's a scroll. He's got like a bunch of stuff stuck in his pockets. He's holding like 3 books and a staff and all that kind of stuff. And that's gap filling for days. Like I've been messing with that guy. I put Bondic in there, smooth that down a little, but then I had to do some other stuff. It's just like, yeah, the model goes together. It's like 1/2 and then 2/4, and then there's a giant gap running down the back and another one on one side, and it's his entire back. It's just really hard to hide that gap as a modeler, and so I don't know. You're going to see a lot of pretty butt ugly versions of that particular model by people. You're going to see a lot of pictures of the front of that model and not the back of him because it's not great. So there's that. I was defeated by the Khorne Skull Grinder mini the other day. Basically, flat joints going together at weird angles. Just chopped him up in the end. Yeah, that was kind of the thing with the Corvus Cabal. There was just like parts where I'm like, this doesn't puzzle together. It's just like I just have to kind of hold it. Like, and that's what I expected from the old days of gluing together Privateer Press models. There was just a lot of like, does this just sort of sit here? Okay, I guess, that's why you had a lot of pinning with those models too, because they were also metal too, which made them heavier and made them fall apart more frequently, which is why you had to pin everything. Excuse me while I write an adventure RPG for Diesel and Nick. All right, that's fine. I got no problem with that. Get 2 grades of that black, wet, or dry sandpaper for effective cleanup as part of an essential tool set. I've been using these they're like little foam emery boards, and that's what I use for smoothing down, and I get them in a bunch of different grades. Like there's a pack you can get, Flexifile, I think is maybe the brand name, and there's a pack where you can get like super fine and coarse and sort of fine and kind of fine, and there's like 6 different ones in there of all different, extra fine, yeah. But, so yeah. The new Psychomancer from the Necron Psychomancer was fun, in quotes. There we go. I gave up on the Necron Psychomancer, so many fiddly bits, and so he went in the bin. Yeah, that's kind of a problem too. The Plasmancer is awesome. I like that model a lot. Gore Grunta ears need a lot of persuasion and are very frustrating. Metal minis can be such a chore. Infinity, I love the models, look great, but are harder to work with. I've been told, and I don't know this 100% myself because I haven't done it, but I built an Infinity model, the only Infinity model I ever built years ago. I told somebody about it, a guy that I know who plays a lot of Infinity, and he's like, oh, yeah, that's the hardest model to build that they've ever made. And I'm like, cool, glad that's the one I started with. Because he was seriously like 15 or 16 pieces, and he's this tall. Anyway, but what I've been told by people who play is that the newer metals that they've been making have been far fewer pieces and have been far easier to build, and so there's been a definite upgrade and benefit in that. I would like to maybe even, because some of those models are very cool. I'm just not particularly interested in the game system. I've done demos of the game like 3 different times now, and it just doesn't stick. I don't know. It's not interesting to me, and I don't know why. But some of the models are very cool, so I could see using them for other games. Like if I got into like a Cyberpunk rule set, like Reality's Edge or something like that. I could definitely see that. But yeah, it's interesting to check out. So. Flexifile are great products, but the standard sandpaper is cheaper and more widely available in DIY stores. Yeah, I get the Flexifile stuff from my local Hobbytown USA. That's where I get it. They have a decent... One of the guys who works at Hobbytown USA, at least the one here in town, he's a very good... he's got two main hobbies. His main hobby used to be 40K, and he was a very, very good painter, and he's still a very good painter. But then he got real hardcore into RC car racing, which makes sense since he's worked at Hobby Town USA for, I don't know, 20 years. So he got real hard into that, but he started getting into miniatures again recently. And so, but because of him being, I think, in the store and being like an assistant manager or a manager or something like that, I have a suspicion that's why they have a tendency to keep a lot more of those types of tools in stock. Every Hobby Town USA is a little different. Like, I've gone into Hobby Towns where they are just full bore everything that Privateer Press sells. And you're like, wow, that's interesting. And then you go to other places that don't sell anything gaming related at all, but they'll have tons and tons of paintball stuff, or whatever. So they're all a little different. They all kind of have core stuff that they carry, but then they also, and that's more like the more gifty stuff, like, these little things and crafty kind of stuff and science kits that you sell to give to the kids for birthdays or whatever and all that kind of jazz. But then there's frequently, like, some places you go into, it's like mucho remote control airplanes, and in other places it's much more into trains or whatever. So anyway, I recently got dragged into Riot Quest. That was a lot of fun. Been looking at Monpok. Yeah, I would like to sit down and do a demo of Riot Quest, and I probably would have pulled that off by now if not for the fact that there are no conventions and stuff. But yeah, it's interesting. I'd like to give it a try just to know about it a little bit more, which would be helpful. Well, folks, it's a little after 11, and I'm gonna have to go. My tummy, I'm hungry, and so there's that. And we'll probably, depending on the temperature, maybe later this afternoon, we'll take Diesel outside for a little walkie walk. He's been getting more bold about going towards the front part of the yard too, which is the slightly busier street. So that's interesting as well. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for coming by. We had some more people than I've ever had before in a chat, so I appreciate that. And things went real well, and that's been cool. And I hope to see you folks again. We'll see you again in another couple of weeks, and we'll talk hopefully about something that's not anything to do with Cursed City. That'd be nice. But yeah, so again, if you're trying to get a copy of it and you really want it for the models or for the game or for whatever it is you want, check with your local stores. Definitely check with your local stores. Give them a call and say, hey, you don't happen to have a copy of this, do you? Because they might. It's a good chance of it. And hopefully we'll hear something from Games Workshop sooner versus later. I don't know. But yeah, there you go. I think that's about it. Have a good rest of your Sunday, unless it's already Monday where you live, and then have a good Monday, I hope. And we'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.